Hello and thank you for tuning in. I'm Antwan Key. I'm here at one of the city of Lakeland's most prized possessions, Hollis Garden. Take a look behind me. Beautiful, isn't it? Hollis Garden is the city's 1.2-acre botanical garden located in downtown on Lake Mirror. And today, you get the chance to learn a little bit more about the garden. There are more than 15 focal points here at the garden, and they all help to tell the story of Florida.
Well, Hollis Gardens, it opened up December 8th of 2000, and it was a donation from Mark and Lynn Hollis. Mark Hollis, he was president of Public Supermarket at one time. Mark and Lynn both donated $1 million to build and construct the garden. It tells a story about Florida's history. You can come up here and you can see native plants that are native to Central and Northern Florida, and also South Florida. We also have bowls and runnels that goes down the spine of the park, which connects to different ages. It starts in primitive Florida, ancient Florida, and it flows down to the next age. It gets into our agrarian age. And as it gets down to the next age, it gets into the age of refinement, which is our modern landscaping era. You see plants from like the hottest pepper in the world, to our African moth repellent, to our tea plant, camellia plants. You also see a lot of nice aquatic plants too that you're not familiar seeing. We also have a historical tree section, which all these trees in this section are actual seedlings and cuttings off the original tree. We try to do all of our big annual beds. We change out probably about 4 times a year, which that averages around 20,000 plants a year. A lot of maintenance goes into maintaining your plants. When I start my day out in the morning, I make my rounds throughout the park, and I make sure everything's going okay, check for irrigation problems, see if there's any dry spots, and if there is, I fix the problems. We start off mowing and edging and weeding and blowing off the park. Now, we mow the park about 3 times a week, every other day, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we edge it and weed eat it 3 times a week. I spend probably about 4 hours a day just on flower beds and trimming and transplanting seedlings and growing plants.
If you're thinking of starting a garden, want to improve your own, or simply enjoy the sight of beautiful flowers, water features, ornamental shrubs, herbs, or vegetables, Hollis Garden welcomes you.
Above you, when you first enter Hollis Garden, you have your wisteria vine, which is located at our gazebo, which is around our fountain. That's where we hold pretty much about 90% of all of our weddings, which we average about 150 weddings a year. And as you enter the park, the first place you'll visit is our grotto. Grotto is covered with Florida limestone, and grotto means cave. It also represents our Florida aquifer, which that's where we used to get our water source. Now, as you leave the grotto, you get into the native section, which are native plants to Central and Northern Florida. That means if you walk out into your woods, you will find these plants growing wild out in your woods. After you leave the native section, which that represents primitive Florida, you get into our historical tree section. each and every one of those trees in this section are actual cuttings or seedlings off the original tree. We have Elvis Presley's weeping willow tree, which comes from his home in Graceland. And also we have Abraham Lincoln's overcup oak, which comes from his birthplace. We have Martin Luther King's sycamore, which comes from his church. Helen Keller's water oak, which comes from her home. And Patrick Henry's Osage orange, which he got over 200 years ago from the Lewis and Clark expedition. And as you leave the historical tree section, you will enter our butterfly section. Now in this section you will see vines of passion vines, and all these flowers attract butterflies. As you leave the butterfly section, you get into our agrarian age, which is our vegetable room. Now the grass that you'll be walking on is Bermuda grass. It's a variety called GN2. The grass comes from Malaysia, and we do mow the grass about 3 times a week. We spend 12 hours a week just maintaining the grass alone. In this room, in the vegetable room, we have vegetables like corn, peppers, eggplant, squashes, beans, peas, watermelons, peanuts. After you leave that section, you go to our koi pond. We have koi fish in there, shabunkins, and goldfish. Koi fish are they're all in the goldfish family. Now the 3 varieties that you'll see in our koi pond are Japanese koi, which are the larger size, shabunkins, which have the fluffier tail on it, and we have goldfish. We also have minnows that we get down from our lake that we put into the pond that keeps the mosquitoes out. Now they don't eat one another because all koi fish, all goldfish are vegetarians. So that's why you'll see our lilies elevated off the water so they don't eat our plants. Now if you go over to Epcot Center, all those other bigger theme parks, and they have larger koi ponds, and their fish are a lot larger. The reason why their fish is a lot larger is because they have a bigger pond. Fish will only grow the size of his home. Now as you leave the koi pond area, you enter our knot garden area. You'll see 2 different hedges intertwining with each other. You'll see a boxthorn and a boxwood hedge, which forms a knot. Now this is a type of gardening that they used to do back in the 1600s. That's how they used to separate their herbs from each other. Now as you leave the knot garden area, you will enter one of our herb rooms. We have all different types of herbs in there. We have you'll see some perennials and annuals in there. You'll see a lot of basil. You'll see an African moth repellent, which you won't see from anywhere else. You'll see a Costa Rican mint bush, and you'll see some indigo, which that's where you get blue dye from. So after you leave our first herb room, you'll get into the modern landscaping era, which that consists of our white room, yellow room, and red room. You enter our white room, which has white flowers with silver foliage. It also has a statue in the center. And after that, you'll walk over into our yellow room. which you'll see a statue on the corner. That statue is called Oracle, which oracles tell the future. As you leave that room, you'll go into our red room. Our red room has red flowers. After you leave that section, you'll get into our other herb room. You'll see more of your rosemaries, oreganos, and more of your spices. We also have a tea plant, and you'll also see a banana shrub, which opens up and blooms at around 5 o'clock in the evening. And after you leave the herb and spice room, you get into our tropical room. In the center of the tropical room, we have another statue, which is called Windows. It was designed by an artist by the name of Robert Wick. He comes from Arizona. And if you look at the statue balances, because over in Arizona, they do a form of art which they balance rocks, and it kind of represents that. And if you notice the different spirals on the statue, that represents DNA, which are the building blocks of life. And you also see a lot of our air plants incorporated onto the statue. Alright, as you exit the tropical room, you will go underneath our oak tree. If you look above, you will see probably over 50 to 100 orchids hanging in our tree. And also you'll see staghorn ferns that were all donations from the public. Then you'll enter into our fruit orchard, which we have probably about 20 different type of fruit trees in there. We have an egg fruit tree, from a fig tree to ugly fruit tree to star fruit carambola to loquat, persimmon, longan, lychee, our Florida peach tree. And we also have a Buddha's hand citrus, which is on the entrance to when you first enter the garden. It's right there to your right. It's called a Buddha's hand citrus. And it's used for medicinal purposes only. The fruit looks like hands. They have little fingers. And the Chinese people, they make a tonic out of it, a drink, and they drink it. And down the center of the park, we have bowls and runnels. What they used to do is a long time ago, they used to pump water from our aquifer, and they used to send them down bowls and runnels, and that's how they used to get water to their crops.
If you would like to visit Hollis Garden with a group, just call 863-603-6281 to schedule a tour. That's right, you and your group can receive an interactive guided tour of all the rooms and features here.